Welcome into the Saints Insider Podcast. I'm Zach Ewing with Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, and Matthew Paris. This is one of our summer episodes recorded ahead of time. So when you are watching this, if some big news happened to drop or something, we don't know about it yet. Feel free to clue us in the comments on what happened in the future. But we're actually talking just after the Saints wrapped up minicamp. So just to put a timeline on when you are watching this. But this hopefully is an evergreen topic, and it is going to be Saints breakout candidates for 2025. The players we think. Maybe we should define that first, okay?
Can we define it by saying breakout candidates like Rod's wardrobe change?
Yes. If you look back, you can find that Matt, Luke, and I are all wearing the same shirt as an episode in the recent past. But Rod thought ahead and changed his shirt.
I didn't change shirts. They just wore the same.
We just don't do laundry.
I love where you're at.
Yeah.
Okay. In all seriousness, let's define breakout candidates. What do we mean by a breakout candidate? Because I think there are slightly different definitions. You could be talking about a rookie or a second-year player who nobody league-wide knows about, who kind of breaks out and becomes a name player. You could be talking about, a player who maybe has taken that step but could take another step and become a star. There's different ways.
I think I just looked at it as like tiers, like who of their good players could ascend to be like just league-wide known as like Pro Bowl caliber players, right? Like some of the best players of their position, potentially. Or who has been maybe a little bit disappointing, who maybe could take another step forward under this new regime, or rookies or second-year players who I think we're all high on, who we think can take another step in their career evolution. I think all of the players that we considered were all probably in that 26 and younger range.
I have one who's older.
I think
than
there's
26.
one I'm thinking of we'll get to who may be a little older than that. But yes, generally speaking, I don't know, Matt, when you're talking breakout, you're talking young players who are going to take a step.
Yeah, and I had to be careful with my list a little bit because I did the initial one and I had like 3 second-year players, and I was like, wow, that is really lazy.
It's kind of the cliche breakout year.
Yeah, so I had to revise it a little bit, and you do want to see that jump, but it's also just like getting on the map. Like I think it's possible for a rookie to break out, like just have like who's that guy, and his play kind of proves it. So
you had a 6th-round rookie on yours.
Spoiler alert.
Sorry.
We should start here too, though, Rod. Like as we talk about breakouts, do the Saints have a star player? Like Alvin Kamara is probably the closest thing they have to that, but that would have been more applicable 2 or 3 years ago, in my opinion. Eric McCoy maybe is a star player, but they don't have a lot of star power on this team. So if they're going to get it, somebody's going to have to break into that.
Yeah, when you asked it, I was thinking Eric McCoy, and it's funny you asked because I was thinking about it the other day. Like the NFL puts out that top 100 list every preseason, and I was just thinking like who would even have a chance of being on it. And Eric McCoy's to me, he was the only one that even probably has a legitimate shot of making it. But
Olave would have if he had been healthy. Maybe I don't.
But even McCoy, what did he play? 8 games last year? 6 games?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so he might not.
So I think they're which is part of the reason that we're talking about a whole new regime here in New Orleans, because like their best players didn't play last year.
Right.
Olave, I think a lot of us would have picked Olave as like the star type player last year, and obviously it just didn't go. It didn't go right for him with all the concussions. And even when he was on the field, we didn't really see like the true breakout that I think a lot of us were kind of expecting with him. So,
yeah, next week or the week after, we'll do our young player draft, and kind of that's a different conversation, like who you think long term the Saints can build their franchise around. But today we're talking specifically about 2025, who breaks out. So we each came up with a list of 5 guys, and there were 6 players who were on multiple lists. So we'll start with those. And then we'll spend a little bit of time at the end on guys that were just on one list and why we think that could be the case.
Was anybody on all 4 lists?
The only guy who was on all 4 lists, and that's who we'll start with.
All right.
Second-year cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. What is the argument for Kool-Aid? Kool-Aid started 9 games last year. He was okay. He didn't have an interception. He had like 6 passes defended, had some good tackle numbers. But he didn't really pop off the field, in my opinion.
For me, I don't know if I would have even had Kool-Aid on this list had it not been for two little plays he made on the last day of practice the other day. He had two pass breakups, and to me, that kind of like put him on my list. I don't know how high I had him on the list, but and I mean, I think there are a lot of people that think this is going to be a year for him. I think PFF had him as the cornerback in the NFL that are expecting to make the biggest improvement. So he's getting some buzz now. I think he's a year two, and you kind of want to see him make that jump. And again, for me, those two plays the other day just kind of made me think that, okay, he is about to turn the corner and be what you expect out of a second-round draft pick.
It wasn't the switch to the swaggier number.
Yeah, that helps too.
It does. It does help. Now that's at that position, like that and wide receiver. If you're wearing something that looks good, maybe you play good.
Part of this is opportunity, right? And that's what he had at the end of last year. He got thrown into the fire after Paulson Adebo was hurt and Marshawn Lattimore was traded. That again, he had his struggles, he had his ups and downs last year, Matt. But I think the thought process for all of us here is that will help him in his sophomore season.
Yeah, he kind of had the best of both worlds, where he spent the first half of the season mostly learning, being ready, and then once it came time to play, he got thrown in the fire, and I don't think he drowned. Like or burned, I guess,
Yeah,
if it's fire.
Drowned in the baptism.
Drowning in fire sounds like a terrible way to go.
Yeah. But I thought he was solid. I think he can be a real we've talked a lot about Alontae Taylor's versatility. What does that mean for the defense? There's nothing wrong with just throwing a corner out there and being like, all right, go match up against this guy, be our solid lockdown corner. And I think Kool-Aid McKinstry has that potential.
To me, I think I'm basing a lot of this off of the fact that he was hurt for a big chunk of last offseason.
Yep.
I think that's hard to do as a rookie to miss a significant chunk of it where you're not getting really accustomed to the NFL way. I think he came back was he out there for the start of training camp, or was it either way he missed
Pretty early
he missed
on.
the entire offseason phase, right? Either it was the start of training camp or pretty early into it. But even then they were working him in slowly. He was with the threes when he was starting out in training camp. So a healthy offseason, a chance to really learn this Brandon Staley scheme, to go into a season knowing he's a starter, and then the pedigree. Right, he was a highly touted recruit coming out. He did nothing at Alabama to dissuade that. I think the injury concern probably dropped him to where the Saints could pick him in the second round. I just think there's way too much going for him to not be a productive NFL player.
Yeah, I think back to when he was drafted. Nick Saban was on the broadcast talking about it, and it's not that Kool-Aid doesn't have athleticism and traits, but he's a player who is very cerebral for that position and thinks his way through things and relies more on that. And to me, that's something where after you've spent a year in this league, you could really see that leap.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think there's also just some potential upside with him in the return game too. He was a really good returner in college, and they've been giving him a look. I think with the punt return unit, during this offseason phase. So, I just think there's a reason he was on all of our lists, and it's not just because he had a good day of practice the other day. I just think he's got the confidence, he's got the ability. I think as we've said before, I think this new scheme is going to be helpful for the corners. So they're not going to be asked to do as much heavy lifting. So I don't know if he'll ever be a guy who's got great ball skills. That's just kind of never been who's been even when he was in college. I think he had 2 picks in college. But he is somebody who can definitely help fortify your pass defense.
Okay, next guy. Did you have?
I was just going to say he's an instinctual player. The play that really stood out to me in that recent practice was he jumped in front of a pass intended for Cedric Wilson, but he really just played it to where remarkable timing, but saw it all the way. You just want those instincts from that type of corner, and he has them.
And I think as he starts to learn receivers' tendencies throughout the NFL, that he's just going to get better. Good piece to have for the Saints. All right, the next guy, we'll switch over to offense. He was on 3 of our lists, and I don't have all 4 of our lists in front of us, so I don't know who didn't have him. But I'm going to guess whoever didn't have him, it was because they already consider him to be broken out, and that's Rashid Shaheed. Is that...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And like, this is a weird one, right? Because when Rashid got hurt last year and his season ended, he was on the cusp of breaking out, or maybe already had. Like, last year could have been his breakout season, then it gets cut short. So, Rod, is this like just a continuation of that for you?
Yeah, I had him second on my list, and for me, him breaking out is just going to be a matter of him staying healthy. If he stays healthy, I think he'll break out. It just natural. That's naturally what's going to happen with him because of how good he is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's exactly why I put him on the list. Even if it's like 14 games.
Yeah.
Right, like if he deals with like a minor soft tissue injury thing that knocks him out for a couple games, I think he could still be like a 1,000-yard receiver in this offense. I think we saw the potential for that last year, and if you remember going into last year, I think there was some question from us, I think we said maybe did like an over/under segment where we were like, could he get like over 750 yards? I think we would all feel pretty comfortable if he can stay relatively healthy, like hit that like 14 game benchmark that like he would exceed that number.
How many yards did he have last year?
He can get.
He was close to 750 even in half a season.
He
had
get
like
1,000 yards on
400
25
or
catches,
500
probably.
yards,
Okay.
like some because he only
Wasn't
played
quite there.
Yeah, he only played like 6 games, something like that. But
he had a couple big ones early.
yeah. I mean, he's so explosive, and I don't think that's like just based on what we've seen.
He had 349 last year.
Okay, not as much as I.
But
How many catches?
20.
Yeah, I was gonna say he can get 1,000 yards on.
in 6 games,
40 catches.
In 6 games, one of those games he had 0 catches. I think that might have been like the Eagles game or something like that. But yeah, I mean, he averaged 17.5 yards a catch last year, long as 70. He's so explosive. He just needs to stay healthy, and I think with this particular offense, with Kellen Moore calling the plays, like he's just like we talked about last week with Olave and Shaheed, just generally, they are the 2 best playmakers in this offense, and Moore is going to find ways to get them the ball. And I think that's going to mean a lot less of the, let's take 3 or 4 deep shots a game to Shaheed like we've seen in the past, but it's going to be a lot more get him the ball in places where he can create and make plays. Because like we've seen him as a returner, like he knows how to navigate traffic, and I think there's a lot more yak ability with him there. If the play is structured in the appropriate way to just kind of like aim for that.
In the Eagles offense that Kellen Moore ran, Rashid strikes me as the Devontae Smith, speed guy, smaller, can burn you deep. But there were other ways the Eagles used him too.
Like
That's the thing. They don't have
an
A.J.
AJ Brown
Brown
on this team.
They don't have,
even though like AJ Brown like is really the vertical threat, right? Like that's his bread and butter is like the go ball. Like he's also like 6'2", 220. Right, like they don't have that. They have guys who are built like Devontae Smith, like Devontae Smith light. I don't think they quite have his ball skills.
The other thing here, Matt, is that this is a contract year for Rashid. So he would very much enjoy a breakout season.
Yeah, the reason I didn't have him on my list was I think he's kind of an unknown commodity, and he's a very, very good player. I do wonder if there's like a scenario where he finishes with 800 yards. Like, I think teams will be aware of the home run ball that, is capable with him. Maybe they're a little bit more in tune. I think he's still going to be a super productive player in this offense. I just, for breakout, if this list was 10 players, he'd be on the list. But I don't know. I had some other guys I wanted to talk about.
And I think it's fair to not, again, you can argue about the definition of breakout. Like Rashid Shaheed's already pretty well. He's going to get drafted in fantasy drafts, right? Like people around the league know who he is.
Yeah, but I think we're talking about a player whose career high is 740 and 19 yards, and that was in 2023 when he played 15 games. Like, I think I'm expecting him to go for 1,000 this year if he stays healthy.
Yeah.
Like I really do legitimately think like he could be like potentially somebody who you're talking about. Look, it's a loaded wide receiver field in the NFC, but like he's somebody who should be in the consideration for the Pro Bowl because like I think he's gonna put up numbers, and I think he's gonna have just the spectacular highlights on top of that.
Is it possible, without taking injury into consideration, that Shaheed is this team's top receiver this year?
I think it's possible, just not likely. I think Olave is going to be what the offense runs through.
I could see Olave having more catches and Rashid having more yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
But
I don't know who's-
do you think it's possible they have 2,000 yard receivers? It's been a minute since they've had that.
I think they're going to run the ball too much for that, but maybe.
But
also
like,
de-
but
I
like,
think
who
with
else?
the
Who else is getting who else is going to get a big chunk of the target share on this? Like if
There's one
their
guy we're
quarterback
going to
throws
talk
for
about later that
3,200 yards, I could see 60% of that going to the top two guys.
Yeah, maybe so.
if we
they
had
would
two,
both have to stay healthy, and the chances of that happening, I think, are. Do you think it's more realistic that they both stay healthy the entire year, or both put up 1,000?
Well, what are we talking about
When you
for healthy
say-
the entire year?
if you're
are they
saying
are they going
17
to play
games.
17 games? I think they could both
15
play.
games,
I think they
let's-
could both play 15 games. Like they've both shown they can do it. It's just not last year. Is like last year is like kind of left a bitter pill in a lot of people's mouths because they played like a combined 14 games last year.
Yeah.
But like I just said 2 years ago, in the one season where he was on the team for the entire 17 game season, Shaheed played 15 games. Olave played I think 14 or 15 in each of his first 2 seasons. So like it can be done with those guys. Right. I do think that it's probably a fool's errand to think they're going to make it through all 17 games, healthy. I just don't think that's realistic, just considering their size limitations and everything like that. But like it's definitely possible they're both just like on the field for the vast majority of the season.
I do agree that if as you predict he goes for 1,000 yards, that qualifies as a breakout. Like
Yeah.
that's legitimate. That'd be 50% increase of his previous career high almost. So I think you can say that. Okay, next guy on the list, going back to the defensive side of the ball, Alontae Taylor. And he was only on 2 of our lists, but he was the top guy. He was the top guy on my list.
And mine, I think.
And I think it was yours, Luke. So I'll let you take the lead on this. I mean, I think the sell job is pretty easy here. He could become Derwin James.
Right. Like they're going to feature him. Right. That's why I think that he could really elevate his game because we've seen the flashes out of him. Right. Like we've seen the really big play potential out of him. And I think they're going to try to lean into that. Like they're going to use him as a blitzer because he's really good at that. They're going to try to put him in position where he can be successful because I think if you're just looking at like a pure talent standpoint, it's probably him or Chase Young who's like the best player on that defense. It's just can they figure out a way to get more out of him? And I feel pretty comfortable with Brandon Staley and the job he's done with previous guys in that specific position to get the most out of Alontae Taylor. And I think the ceiling's really, really high for that player. So, like, we've seen him be pretty good. I think he can be, like, legitimately, like, a, top 5 slot, if you want to put it that way, in the NFL, which is really good.
He has shown flashes on individual plays or even for a game where you're going, man, does he have potential to be a star. And then he'll have some really low lows. A couple years ago, he gets benched against the Rams. He started to get burned pretty good in one-on-one coverage at times late last year after Adebo and Lattimore were gone. So if he could just even that out, and in this new position being featured more, I think that there exists a real possibility where he does become a star. But Matt, you left him off your list. What was your thinking?
I just have a little bit too much of a question mark of how he'll perform in coverage for me to feel like super confident that, he's going to break out. Like, I could see it happening. You guys are making great points. It was the last stretch of him playing outside cornerback where teams really went after him. It stuck in my mind, and I would hope this change back to nickel, and I think it is going to be an overall plus for him. But I do wonder at the start of the year if it's, let's say, Ike Yadam instead of Quincy Riley, like, who are they going to try and go after in the secondary? I could still see it being Alontae Taylor. So, and the fact that I'm a little bit worried about the secondary in general, I left him off the list because of that. But he does have star potential. He's a really effective blitzer. Like, I could see him breaking out. There are just a lot of other question marks for me that make that I didn't have him on the list.
Yeah, you're in the I want to see it stage of it. And like I totally agree with that. Like we've seen the flashes, but like the consistency has not been there and the lows have been low. So like banking on him to break out is probably like like it's probably risky because he's been in the league for 3 years now. But I just I'm just confident in Brandon Staley and what he's done with that position in the past and who he's had play that position and in his confidence in Taylor to make that jump. I just think that they're going to feature him in this defense, and I think that's going to be good for him. Also, it is a contract year for Alontae Taylor as well.
Yep, good point. Derwin James with the Chargers, and then Jalen Ramsey with the Rams is the other one to mention who's been in that role. Rod?
Yeah, I didn't have him in my top 5, but he was probably like my next guy. It was really just because I had somebody else I wanted to get in my top 5. But I think Alontae could have a really good year, especially, we see him, I think it was the first day of, I don't know if that was OTAs or I don't know what it was, but he, they showed him back there, he rushing the quarterback and getting sacks, which he did early last season. So I think he's in a role now where he's going to get to show off that versatility that we kind of know him for.
It just need a little more consistency from him, and I think he could be a really, really good player. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here on the Saints Insider. When we come back, more of our 2025 breakout candidates.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. With quick picks, you can tap right into pre-built, ready-to-bet parlays right from the home screen. And if you miss tip-off, no worries. You can play same-game parlays live during the action. Plus, it's never been easier to find and bet on the biggest matchups of the day, so you can keep up with all the action. Caesars Sportsbook, proud partner of the NBA and the only sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards. Download it today.
You are watching or listening to the Saints Insider podcast here, one of our summer editions. Encourage y'all to like the video, subscribe to the Saints on NOLA.com YouTube channel. We're going to be with you at least once a week all summer long, even as we traverse different parts of the world for vacation. We're still going to be here every week. So check us out, sign up for notifications, all of that good stuff, and hit the like button on this video. Next breakout candidate, going back to the offensive side of the ball, he was on 2 lists. He was the top guy, I believe, on Matt's list, Taliese Fuaga.
Yeah, this is, for me, like, right tackle is just, like, if he breaks out, I feel pretty good about him playing right tackle because he did it in college. And for me, the question is, how much better is he at right tackle than left tackle? And I could see it being a pretty big difference. And I was high on him as left tackle. So I think he's just like an overall really solid player. And for him to take that jump, it's year 2. He's going back to his more comfortable position. It would depend on Kelvin Banks, I think, being really solid at left tackle for this to happen. But I think he has like real true breakout potential to where people do think, oh man, this guy is like an upper tier right tackle in this league. He was really solid last season, and I just think this position change is going to be good for him.
I was the other one who had Fuaga on my list, and I agree with all that. I don't even know, like, the right tackle thing could help, but I just think if you get thrown into the fire as a rookie left tackle and survive like he did, not just survive, I mean, he was solid, right? That year 2, these are the kind of players you see a jump in, and they become the best players in the league.
Yeah, he gave up 6 sacks last year, which isn't great, but 3 of those came against the Denver Broncos. Like, he was terrible in that game. But besides that, and what was really encouraging is you saw like a response from him after that, and he grew from that game. And I just think I think his potential is pretty high.
For me, I didn't put him on the breakout list just because I thought his rookie season was so solid that like my expectations for him are high anyway. So I don't even know if I'm expecting to call it a breakout. Yeah, I just expect him to be good. So to me, it's not even breaking out because of how good he was last year.
That's fair.
Yeah, I guess when you hit on a first-round pick and it looks like you hit on it, then you just stop expecting him to take a leap.
No, I think Matt makes really good points, though. Fuaga was probably like middle of the road left tackle last year across the NFL, which is really, really good for a rookie coming in, especially for a guy who's making a position switch. And I think there is legitimate opportunity for him to set himself up for the next couple of years whenever Lane Johnson retires and you're looking at like a change of the guard at right tackle. Like he could be one of those guys who's considered one of the league's premier players at that position. if he continues on the track and if he looks more comfortable on the right side than he did on the left side, which was really good, I think that's a really good pick by Matt. I'm kind of kicking myself for not putting him on my list because I wanted to get one more guy on here since I've been like banging the table for this for like a year and a half now. But yeah, I think Matt's spot on. I think he has a chance, especially with them kind of updating their coaching staff and their scheme and putting him on the right side where he played the overwhelming, if not entirety of his college career. The overwhelming majority, if not the entirety. I think that it has a chance to look really, really, really good for him over there.
Small spoiler alert is that none of us had Kelvin Banks on this list. Did any of you consider him? Left tackle rookie. It's hard to say what a breakout even is.
Right. I just haven't seen anything out of him. Right. I can't. I'd feel really weird saying like I think Kelvin Banks is going to break out when like literally the only thing I've seen him do is like take pass sets attached to like a rubber band. I don't know.
But that is included in this discussion, as you said, Matt. It's like if Kelvin Banks struggles at left tackle, and then you're all of a sudden it's October and we're having the conversation about do you move Fuaga back over there to try to fill that hole? Like then this could all get very messy.
Yeah, and I don't like. I think he'll be fine. He'll probably struggle some. Fuaga did. Like it's okay if he does. I just, in terms of an actual like breakout, I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's expectations for us and probably from the Saints organization for Banks to be pretty good.
Yeah.
From the jump because he's a top 10 pick. Yeah.
Right.
Now, like not all top 10 picks work out. Like there's like look at Evan Neal or was it Jedrick Willis from the Browns a couple years ago or Mekhi Becton. Like these guys. Although I think Mekhi was just outside the top 10, but either way, like these guys sometimes like the highly selected tackles like flame out and they're not good. But I think the expectation before he steps on the field is that he is going to lock down that left side.
Right. I think even Andrew Thomas, who's like an awesome left tackle now, he struggled season. So you just never know.
Yeah, there's still a lot of question marks there, and I was actually just picked up the Saints have a draft guide they put together, and there was one laying in the media room at their facility the other day, and I picked it up and started thumbing through it. They had a bunch of mock drafts. The thing was published like 2-3 weeks before the draft, and Kelvin Banks was not at all considered a top 10 pick by anybody leading into, at that point. And then it changed and people kind of had their eyes open. So I do think there's some question marks with him, and that plays into the Fuaga conversation.
Yeah, but also like, and because I had that same reaction right after he was picked. Like I think a lot of the, pre-draft rankings from people who you respect, Dane Bruglers of the world, et cetera, had Banks like number, in between in between 20 and 30 on their big board, which made that feel a little rich. But at the same time, like tackle is a premium position, and it always will be. Those guys, the top of the market players, make a ton of money, and the Saints were a little unsettled there. So like I think I feel better about that now than I did in the moment with like picking maybe overdrafting a guy based on like where he was like in the top 100, and maybe the Saints felt a lot better about it than some of those draft gurus or whatnot.
And they had a chance to draft other guys who were considered. They could have drafted Tyler Warren, Jalen Walker. Like there were other guys that they chose Banks over. So I think they feel good about him. And if that means Fuaga's at right tackle and he can cement himself as one of the NFL's top 10 players there, then that's it. That's a breakout. Okay, next guy on the list. He was on 2 lists, but he was pretty high up there, and that's Brian Brzee. Brian Brzee is it fair to call him a polarizing player? Like he has this very clear strength in pass rush and a very clear weakness in run defense. Now it looks as if he's going to be playing more of the 3 technique tackle in the 3-4.
No, a 4 technique end. So he'd be head up.
4 technique. Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah,
head up over the tackle.
The end in a 3-4, which could unlock the pass rush more. Could maybe more importantly give him fewer responsibilities in run defense. Like this one feels like it could go one way or the other, but it could go really well too.
Yeah, I think so. I legitimately think that they are with this. We'll call it a position switch, even though I think there's still going to be plenty of times where he's lined up in that 3 technique spot that we saw him in last year. I think it does like hide his deficiencies a little bit and emphasizes his strengths. Now, like traditionally in like the 3-4 defense, like the pass rush is not necessarily coming from the 3 down linemen, right? It's coming from the outside linebackers or the edge rushers. So that's like the Chase Youngs and Carl Grandersons in this defense. But like when you're talking about who he's going to be going up against, double teams he's going to be facing, one-on-ones he's going to be facing, I think those are maybe more favorable for him, especially when it comes to run defense. So I think he does take a step forward this year. And look, he's been a really, really, really productive inside pass rusher. He was 3rd in the NFL among defensive tackles last year in sacks. Since his rookie season, the 2023 season, he's 6th among NFL defensive tackles in sacks. That's ahead of guys like Jalen Carter. That's ahead of guys like Jeffrey Simmons, who are kind of widely considered some of the best defensive tackles in football, some of the best pass rushing defensive tackles in football. So he's got an elite skill set there. But he's just got to get better, so much better against the run. I think moving a little farther away from the ball will probably help him in that regard. I mean, Pro Football Focus had him almost dead last in run defense grades last year. It's like 217 out of 218 defensive tackles.
Yeah, Matt, you didn't have him on your list, but you take this big deficiency in his game and minimize it. Like you could see the argument for it at the same time. Is he going to be on the field anymore? I don't know. Is the impact going to increase in general?
Yeah, he's in the I need to see it category for me. I kind of just think that's who he's going to be in the NFL. I think he's going to be like a very good inside pass rusher who struggles against the run. Like those guys, there are those types of players. Like awesome at one thing, but the weakness stands out. Like I don't. Maybe the scheme switch helps, but I just need to see it. I also think, like, in terms of just replicating, like, 7.5 sacks for defensive tackle is a lot. I don't think he'll get there again. Maybe he will. That'd be great. But, like, this team should want more production from their edge guys. And so where does that, like... So it's going to... Statistically, it takes away from somewhere.
Yeah, it will not be a breakout statistically if he doesn't... Sure, that makes sense.
And I think last year he had a legitimate breakout because the play we didn't mention... was his field goal block against the Giants. Like that's an awesome breakout type play, and I just think that's hard to do again. So
yeah, I just think that like he played 60% of the snaps last year. I could see that bumping up to like 70 to 75, especially if like they're comfortable with him as a run defender in their base when he's playing, the head up position on the tackle, and they've got like Godshaw or somebody else playing the nose. You could see that the amount of snaps increase and therefore like some of the pressure opportunities increase. But I am with you in that like he needs to show it a little bit more. But like if he's somebody who's like maybe approaching double-digit sacks, which like I think is a legitimate possibility. Yeah. It was rookie year he had 4.5 sacks and he had 2 wiped away by kind of cheesy penalties. So I think that like that is definitely like an elite skill set trait that he has, and I think that could be replicated in this, even if there's the pressure is going to look different from like the schematic standpoint.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but do you think the Saints will pick up his 5th year?
So I don't know. I don't know if like this like position switch is going to change that. Right, 5th year option on a defensive tackle is a lot different than 5th year option on a defensive end.
Right.
I don't know how that works. When it comes to like defining the option bonus. Like I think that's part of why they didn't pick up Trevor Pennings, because they were already planning on moving to guard, and his 5th year option would have been a tackle. I mean, significantly more expensive. I would say they probably pick it up, because I do think that while there are guys who are like kind of one-trick ponies, I do think like interior pass rush is something that's very difficult to find in the NFL. And if that's who he ultimately is, if he is like a sub defensive tackle rush guy where he's playing 50% of the snaps, I still think that's really valuable if you are getting into 3rd and long situations.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just say I didn't have him on my list, but I think he is a guy that we might look back at this list at the end of the season and we was like, Luke called it. He was a genius on this one. So
Yeah. All right. One guy who I think Matt and Rod, you guys had on your list, we'll go back to the offense. And this is, I'm surprised Luke didn't have him because we've been calling for his breakout for like 3 seasons now, but that's Juwan Johnson.
Luke didn't have him?
He did not have him.
I've been burned one too many times.
Yeah, what is the argument for this finally being the year that we see the Juwan breakout?
I think for me is part of it is just the fact that we kind of talked about these receivers and how they're kind of small, undersized receivers. And I think Juwan is going to probably have to fill some of that role and be that guy they go to on 3rd and 4 or whatever. And I just think he has a shot to kind of finally do what we've been thinking he's going to do for the last 3 years. So that's why I put him on there.
Matt?
This is Kellen Moore. I believe in Kellen Moore to get to get out of Juwan Johnson, just because. And I also think the context of Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau coming off major injuries, they're slow back into the fold. There's got to be targets for tight ends somewhere. Like he gets off to a faster start. I could see a breakout happening because of the circumstances, like how the rest of the position is right now, and then also how Kellen Moore has emphasized tight ends in his offense in the past.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be a safety valve for these young quarterbacks somewhere. And we talk about how Olave and Shaheed are both more downfield threats. It's not that you can't throw to him on 3rd and 7, but you do wonder somebody's going to have to be the target on those plays. Juwan has shown when he gets opportunity in the past, when some of these top guys have been hurt, that's when he has his big games. Like, I see the pathway for it, Luke, but I see the skeptical look on your face too.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it for the last couple of years. I've just been waiting on it to happen, and even sometimes when you see it in camp and it looks really, really good. I think Derek Carr's first year here was 22 season, right?
23.
23.
He was only here 2 years.
23.
Yeah, 23. Yeah.
So the 23 season, like he was awesome in training camp that year. Like I remember, I think it was like going into week 1. Like the over-under betting line on like receiving yards for him was like 19 or something like that. I'm like, wow, smash the over, and then he had like 28, and then that was just kind of who he was. I need to see it in a game. Like this is the I need to see it part for me has really come to roost for Juwan Johnson. Like I think he's shown all the potential in the world to be like a truly special like move tight end. Like you don't see a lot of guys his size who can move like he does. I think he's really well respected in the locker room. I think there's a reason the Saints wanted to commit the dollar value to him this offseason. And it's not just because he's a good guy. Like I think they see a path for him to be a really good player in this offense. But like I really need to see it because like I've been calling it for years now and it hasn't happened.
Yes.
I'm just going to ride it out until it does happen. If he has a
You'll
bad
be
year,
right
one
eventually.
more
Let her ride, baby. Let her
One more
ride.
time. Yeah.
Rolling the 8 and the 3 dice.
Juwan Johnson is this year's Chase Young for Rod. That's
15
15 and a half
sacks,
touchdowns.
15, yeah.
oh my gosh. Okay. Some other guys that we mentioned, and I said at the top of the show there were 6 who got multiple kind of votes in our top 5s. There's actually one more, 7. And he got the last vote. He was the 5th place guy for 2 of us, and that's Trevor Penning, moving to guard. So let's mention him real quick. And I'm guessing, I don't even remember who had him on their list. But
I had him.
Okay, it was Luke and Rod. The argument is just like his skill set fits guard, right? I imagine that's the argument.
Yeah, that was my thing. And for me, it's going to be one or two ways for him. It's going to be a breakout year, or it'll be the last time we're talking about Trevor Penning. I just think it's kind of feast or famine year for him. He really needs to show it at the guard position. And I mean, he's a big mauler guy. This kind of fits what he's good at. So we need to see it. And to me, he's the key to this whole offensive line thing working. If he's who he's supposed to be, and I'm assuming Kevin Banks is going to work out, I think this offensive line may end up being the strength of this team. But it all depends on Trevor for me.
I asked Mickey Loomis after Trevor Penning's rookie season if they were considering moving him to guard. Like, I think this has just been like the natural place for him all along. And yes, he's big for the position, and yes, he has definitely had his struggles in the NFL. But like I just when you're shortening the area and you're eliminating Trevor Penning being in space against some of the premier athletes in the NFL, and you're leaning into his strengths, which are like get your hands on somebody and move them. Like I think it could look really, really good. And I think there's also a chance I look back on this and think I'm an idiot, you know? Right. Like Rod's saying, like there's definitely boom or bust potential for this year. I think they're set up decently if it's like a complete failure. It's like, okay, just throw Dylan Radins in there, and that's the end of the Trevor Penning era in New Orleans. But I've been wanting to see this for a while. I think we're finally going to get a chance to see it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what it looks like in training camp when you get to see his physicality play out at that position. But just from like a temperament standpoint, from a skill set standpoint, like I think it makes all the sense in the world to try him out there and see what it looks like.
He's gonna like just road grade on some play, and we're all. I don't know if it's going to happen consistently, but it's going to happen at least once or twice.
We're going to see Trevor.
Oh my God.
We're going to see Trevor Penning pulling, and he's going to be out in space against a 195-pound defensive back, and he's going to block him into next week. It's going to be awesome. Can he hold up the other 58 plays?
Yeah.
You know, like that's going to be the big thing. Like I think as a run blocker, he's already well established as what he can do. But like, is his career just going to be the jumbo tackle in some team's offense? And just come in on running plays and do what he does for 6 snaps a game? Or is it going to be as a starting offensive lineman? I think there's some legitimate question about whether or not he could potentially be like an average NFL tackle. I think there's a chance he could be a really good guard. We'll see. We'll see.
I mean, the problem is the next play he could get literally knocked back into his own quarterback in a pass pro situation.
Right.
So,
and look, I mean, the last thing you want for a young quarterback is to be facing interior pressure.
Okay, there were 3 other guys who got mentioned on one ballot, so to speak. I'm going to save the last 2 because they're grouped together. The other one's Justin Reed, and Matt, you had him, I think, 3rd on your list. I didn't really even consider him as a breakout guy just because he started for a Super Bowl team last year. But I'm curious to see what you think the next step is for Justin Reed.
This is my Chase Young is going to have 15.5 sacks kind of on a limb take. Like Pro Bowl level for him. He's never made a Pro Bowl. I think he's a really good player, and I think he can just kind of be this key of this defense. And if this defense is better than expected, I think maybe he'll be a large reason why. So that breakout is more of a bet that he'll like elevate to that Pro Bowl recognition. Maybe, I don't think all pro, but like, that people look around and say, wow, this guy's one of the best safeties in the league. And he might be there already, but I don't think people recognize him as much as such.
Yeah, I think he's kind of maybe like that second tier, like league wide. Like he's not Jesse Bates, I don't think, or Antoine Winfield, like guys who are like consistently making plays on the ball.
Right. He's enough to have a market. Like when free agency opened, the Eagles, the Titans were really interested in him. So like he's known that way. It's just like, can he take that next step? And I think that's why I put him on the list, is because I do think there's another step there.
Okay, and the last 2 guys who got a vote here were the 2 young running backs. I think Kendry Miller would have been on like every list last year. And we're all sort of like, can this guy even get on the field? Like, Rod, you kept him on your list. Matt, you put Devin Neal, the rookie, on your list. Might have been the only rookie we mentioned today, since none of us had Banks or Shuck. I guess start the argument here. The Saints need one of these guys to step up. They need to lower Alvin Kamara's pitch count. Somebody's got to be that number 2 running back. So who will it be?
Well, for me, I just put Kendry on there just because when we've seen him, he looks pretty good. I just feel like eventually it's going to happen. But obviously there must be some concerns. I mean, they brought Cam Akers in. They're still looking at other guys. But I just think, he's going to finally have that year that we've been thinking about. And I think I kind of put him on there so this is my one guy I can look back and y'all say, yeah, Rod told us that. Mm. Or it could be.
Or we could look back on August 31st and be like, I didn't make the 53.
Right.
I just, like, it's not the thing that concerns me about Kendry is yes, the injuries are part of it. And you say, okay, if he can stay healthy. Even when he's been healthy and he's had opportunity, like that Monday night game in Green Bay, he's getting benched. Like there's clearly not something connecting with him.
Yeah, and I'm hoping the fresh start, a new coach will help him, and maybe he can be what Kenny Gainwell was to the Eagles. I just hope he can be that kind of guy. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that's like the big question, like what you just brought up. Like, can he like lock in and play like assignment sound football and do what he's supposed to do as a pro? Like, obviously, he was 20 years old when he entered the. He was a kid. Yeah,
He's
but
still
this
really
is
young. That's true.
This is his third NFL season. This is like a make or break for him in New Orleans. So like, if he doesn't get his act together on some of that stuff, some of the stuff that does not involve him carrying the football and generating explosive plays, like they're just not going to trust him and they're not going to lean on him.
I don't even think we have to wait till the season starts. Really, I mean, if he's on the roster, I think. I mean, like you said, I mean, he might. If he's not on the roster, then okay.
Maybe you guys
good.
both will be right. He won't make the roster, but he'll break out for another team.
Oh man,
That happens.
I mean, that has happened plenty of times with young running backs, guys who flame out in one play. Who's the guy? Deontay Foreman, right? It was like he's like a second or third round draft pick, and like he was just kind of a knucklehead. He got cut like in his second year, and then he went on to have like a decent NFL career with a couple teams. I think he had 1,000 yards rushing with Tennessee one year. Like that stuff happens, but like the light bulb's got to come on for him because like there's no questioning what his physical skill set is. Like he's clearly a very explosive player, but it's being healthy and it's doing the stuff he's supposed to do as a pro.
Matt, give us the Devin Neal side of the argument here.
I'm going to go more on pedigree of how the draft works. Every year there's like 1 6th round, 1 5th round running back that just pops.
Yeah.
And he was a tremendously productive player at Kansas. And they need someone just to step into that role. And that's kind of what I'm banking on is, do I actually believe Devin Neal is going to be like a superstar from day one for them or like what a player? Yeah, but I could see it happening just based on like, every year there's one and maybe he's the one.
Yeah, like Bucky Irving was like a 4th round pick. Tyler Algier was like a 5th round pick. Isaiah Pacheco was like a 7th round pick. Like you can absolutely find like, and I don't know why teams aren't just like going into the draft every year with like if they have multiple day 3 picks like the Saints had, and not just being like, all right, well that guy tested like crap, but he ran for 1,700 yards last year. Let's give him a shot. Yeah, like especially if the infrastructure is good on the offensive line and with what you're doing play calling wise, is like you could put a lot of running backs into that situation and have them be successful. Like I think there's a chance that Devin Neal really clicks for this team this year. I don't think I've seen anything like we were kind of discussing like with OTAs and minicamp. Like you can't really tell. But like I loved the pick when they made it, and like you said, I mean, we've just seen it over and over and over again with day 3 picks who are like wildly successful at the NFL level.
And I've been encouraged. Sorry if I cut you off. I've been encouraged that he has gotten a lot of work with the ones like when Kamara wasn't there. It was Neal for a lot of those. Kendra Miller would get there, but like there were days. There was like a day where Kendra Miller was with like the backups, like on the other side of the field, while it was Devin Neal getting and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like Kendra Miller, I could see Kendra Miller not making this roster. I don't know if that's a huge surprise or not. I don't think it would be. Just he's probably facing the most pressure of actually like, you need to get your stuff together, buddy. Like,
For sure.
Yeah,
on this roster.
Yeah, and who doesn't care about like draft status from a couple years ago is like a new coaching regime.
Right, yeah.
He was not a 3rd round pick for them.
Right.
I mean, he was obviously for the front office. Like those guys have ties to him, but like if Kellen Moore and the new coaching staff comes in, they're like, well, Kendra's just not cutting it.
Well, and this is year 3
we can
now. Come on.
Right. We can keep a 6th round pick over him.
Yeah.
But they are definitely like I do think there's legitimate possibility that they're not done at that position, which could put a cap on both of those guys.
There's huge opportunity though, because I don't think they want Alvin Kamara to have 300 carries or anything, and they do want to run the ball. So there's big time opportunity for somebody. Just whether it's one of these young players or whether it's Edwards-Helaire or Cam Akers or somebody else from the outside. I don't know, but. Maybe it's your boy Yarns.
One day we're going to get a look at him, my friend.
Kenny
Whoever's asking me about Marcus Yarns.
Yeah. Or Valladay. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like, and it's probably past time that they stop giving Alvin 23 or 24 touches a game, right? And maybe use him more like he was used as a rookie second-year player when he's getting like 15, 16 touches a game, and picking your spots and trying to get more explosiveness out of him. I think it just remains to be seen which of those young guys kind of steps up as a number 2. Which is like why we just had this entire argument here.
Yeah. Okay, one more question, kind of combo question to wrap this thing up. Did anybody strongly consider anybody else, and or did you consider one of the quarterbacks for these breakout lists?
Well, I considered Fuaga.
So, someone else we haven't mentioned at all. Yeah.
Bub Means.
Bub Means was on my radar too. Yeah. I did not consider.
But what would
one
a
of the
breakout
QBs.
look like for Bub Means? Like 400 yards?
Just being the number.
To be the number 3
guy.
receiver.
Yeah, just
over
getting.
Cooks.
I would say even getting 50 targets or whatever it is.
I'd be,
It's a low bar.
I saw
Yeah.
a Twitter post the other day that was like, Bub Means 1,000 yards. It's like, good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know. Like,
Good luck with that, bub.
I mean,
It was not from Bub Means. I would have respected it if it was.
look, I think there's I didn't consider him for this list just because, like, I feel like he's been in the league for long enough that we kind of know what he is. But, like, what if Chase Young is finally like, what if they're finally able to
about
tap
him
into
too.
the
Yeah.
potential, and he's a 10+ sack guy? Because, like, you can see that.
10
15 plus sec.
15. I mean, like, you can see, like, you could see those traits, and you could see him for a big chunk of his career. It's just never materialized, and like maybe it won't, and it probably won't because he's topped out at 7.5 over the course of his career. But like, I don't know. I think Staley's a really smart coach, and I think there's a chance that this sort of defensive system works for him. Am I gonna call that, Rod? No, I'm not gonna call it.
I call it when the season gets closer.
Yeah,
When we
all right,
do our
yeah. But
bold
like,
predictions.
last year was what it was. The sack numbers weren't great. The pressure numbers were good. Everybody's sick and tired of talking about that. But like, I do think that like, there's just so much to like there, and there's a chance that like by the end of the season that contract extension they signed him to looks really, really good. Or it's just like it just looks like it should be what it is. Like he's a 6-7 sack guy, and they're paying him for about that production.
No, he's a good one. You have anybody else you
I don't
consider?
think I had it. I mean, those would have been probably my 2, Bub and Chase. Maybe Blake Groupie. I don't know. I mean,
I was gonna throw one out for fun. Charlie Smith.
No,
Yeah.
you don't have to tell me about that.
That ball.
I want to see Charlie Smith kick in a game. So
Dude,
I
the
want
ball
to see them line up.
jumps off of his foot so much.
I want to see him line up for like a 70-yard. Obviously, like if they're playing, like they can still stash him again this year, right? To where he's like the 54th man on the roster, or the 16th guy in the practice squad, whatever. So
Why did Blake Groupie have to be so good, man? They can't get rid of him.
Yeah,
Well, otherwise, we'd have had fun with Charlie Smith.
Charlie
But
makes
here's the
he
thing,
makes
though,
the
like,
70 yarder,
if-
but he misses the
Exactly.
45 yarder.
But if Charlie Smith looks like great in training camp, and some team is just like cycling through kickers, you could maybe work out like a late pick for Groupie or something like that if they want to go that route. I think it's good to have that on the roster.
Sure.
But like I desperately want to see him kick a 70-yarder in a game setting. And there's just if they're planning on stashing him again for a year, there's just a 0% chance we're going to get to see that in like the preseason. Like they don't want to show everybody that he can do that.
No. The ghost of Tom Dempsey wants the NFL record to live in New Orleans, though. Like it's meant to be.
Yeah, I think he's a lot of fun. I think Groupie's really good though. I think there's like.
That's why you can't pick Smith.
I think there's just very little chance
blocked.
he's their kicker going into the year, even though it would be a lot of fun.
Okay, speaking of a lot of fun, this was a lot of fun, and we hope you enjoyed our summer episode here on Saints Breakout Candidates. We'll have another episode for you on the Saints Insider next week. Until then, our producer Norman Bell, Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, and Matthew Paris, I'm Zach Ewing, and we will see you next time.